A man tries to board a bus. Seconds later, he's dead. Was it a tragic accident or was it negligence? This isn't some hypothetical classroom question. This is a real case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And trust me, its outcome affects every single one of us who uses public transport. Let's get into it.
At the very heart of this case is a question that seems simple, but is legally just incredibly profound. Who is responsible when a routine bus ride turns fatal? The entire answer would be decided by a court trying to piece together what happened in just a few crucial contested seconds.
And this whole thing was not a quick fix. This journey for justice took over 6 years, winding its way all through the court system, with different courts looking at the same facts and arriving at completely opposite conclusions. It's kind of wild.
So, let's rewind. Let's go back to where it all began. The date is March 25th, 1985, in a mining community up in Benguet. A man named Pedrito Cudiomat tries to board a bus, one operated by the Dongua Transportation Company. And what happens in the next few moments? Well, that becomes the center of this entire legal battle.
So the victim's family sued the bus company, and right away you have two wildly different stories. The family claimed the driver was reckless, ran Mr. Cudiomat over, and then actually delayed getting him medical help. But the bus company? They argued that no, the victim's own carelessness was the cause, and that they had done absolutely everything right.
So the case goes to the trial court first, and after hearing arguments from both sides, the judge delivers a verdict that must have been just a total shock to the victim's family. The court declared that it was primarily the victim's fault, not the bus company's. They essentially said that Mr. Cudiomat's own actions were the direct or proximate cause of his own tragic death.
And the reasoning here is really interesting. The judge focused entirely on what the victim did, concluding that he recklessly tried to board a bus that was already moving, all while holding an umbrella. For that trial court, that was the end of the story. Case closed.
But the Cudiomat family, they just refused to accept this. No way. They appealed the decision, taking their case up to the next judicial level, the Court of Appeals. And there, well, the story was seen through a completely different lens.
And wow, what a turnaround. The appellate court completely reversed the first ruling. They didn't just disagree a little bit. They put the blame squarely on the bus driver and, by extension, on Dongua Transportation.
You see, the appeals court found evidence that the bus wasn't moving when Mr. Cudiomat got on. They believed it was stopped and he was already on the platform when the bus suddenly lurched forward. That, the court said, was a clear violation of the company's duty to its passenger.
Okay, so now we have a real problem, right? Two different courts are looking at the same evidence and have reached two totally opposite conclusions. This is exactly why the Supreme Court exists. They had to step in, look at everything all over again, and figure out what really happened that day. The entire case, everything, hinged on this one single question. If the bus was moving, then maybe the victim was negligent. But if it was stopped, the driver was almost certainly at fault. So, how do you find the truth years later? You got to look for clues in the evidence. And the way the court found its answer is just brilliant. The Supreme Court looked very closely at the testimony from the bus company's own employee, the conductor. He admitted that the bus had stopped to let another passenger off right there, between bunkhouse 53 and 54, the exact location of the accident. This piece of testimony was the key that unlocked the whole case. So, based on that, the Supreme Court established a really vital legal point for all of us. When a public bus stops, it is essentially making a continuous offer to anyone who wants to ride. You don't need to wave or signal. The open door is an invitation. And that means the driver and the conductor have a duty to look out for anyone trying to get on. All right, so armed with this key fact that the bus was stopped, the Supreme Court was finally ready to lay down its judgment. And in doing so, it was going to clarify the law for all public transportation. First, the court explained this concept called the contract of carriage. Now, this isn't a piece of paper you sign. It's an invisible legal relationship that begins the moment you even try to board a public vehicle. The court ruled that by stepping onto that bus platform, Mr. Cudiomat was already a passenger, and he was fully protected by this contract. So what does this contract demand? Well, not just regular, ordinary care. It demands something called extraordinary diligence, and that is a huge deal. It's the highest degree of care the law recognizes. It basically means bus companies are presumed to be at fault for any injury unless they can prove, without a doubt, that they did everything humanly possible to prevent it.
So the court concluded that accelerating the bus while Mr. Kudiamat was still on the platform, that was a clear and sadly catastrophic failure to exercise this really high standard of care.
But the court's condemnation did not stop there. It was horrified by what the driver did after the accident. Instead of rushing the badly injured Mr. Kudiyama to the nearby hospital, the driver went in the opposite direction to drop off another passenger and unload a refrigerator. Only after all of that did they finally take him for medical help. The court had a name for this: callous indifference.
So, in the end, the Supreme Court sided with the family, holding Dongguan Transportation liable. It awarded damages, but you'll notice it carefully adjusted the amount. It was based on the victim's net potential earnings, what he would have actually taken home, to make sure the compensation was as fair and accurate as possible.
Okay, so that's the story of the case. But beyond all the legal arguments, what does this decades-old ruling really mean for us, today, every time we step onto a bus or a train?
Well, here are the key things to remember. This case reinforces that public transport companies have this profound responsibility for every single person who steps on their vehicles. You are a passenger with full legal protection from the very second you start to board. And if there's an accident, the company has to prove it wasn't their fault, not the other way around. Their duty doesn't just end when the wheels stop turning.
It's really a powerful reminder of these invisible legal duties that structure our daily lives, a framework that was built from tragedies just like this one, designed to protect all of us when we're at our most vulnerable. Definitely something to think about on your next commute.